Hello. In this video, you'll learn about the different domains of cognitive functioning, what they mean, and how to understand the difference between them. At the end of the video, we'll solve a diagnostic problem together for a real-life patient who had questions about Alzheimer's disease. Patients often come to my office because they're concerned about how their brain is working. They generally characterize their problem as difficulties with memory that seems to be increasing over time. This was the case with my patient, who we'll call Stella for confidentiality purposes. She came to my office worried that her memory was getting worse. She described forgetting why she went into a room, forgetting the details of a lively conversation with friends, and getting sidetracked while telling a story or forgetting the point of the story altogether. She was worried that she was developing Alzheimer's disease and that she'd have to move into a care facility soon. While this is a reality for a lot of people, was it a reality for her? It's interesting to note that while most problems are lumped under this category of memory, specialists can actually parse out different domains of brain functioning that may be at the root of the issue. This is especially important when we're wondering about a diagnosis or what to do about a problem, because treatment and coping strategies can be very different depending on the true nature of the difficulty. Today, we'll walk through several different domains of brain functioning, providing you with a roadmap and language that you can use to describe and understand your brain, and we'll use Stella's testing results as an example. Let's start with the foundational aspects of brain functioning, including basic attention and concentration and working memory. The ability to attend to something allows a person to select useful information and enter it into our brain. It includes the ability to focus, differentiate between relevant and irrelevant material, and sustain focus over time, kind of like a funnel. When information has been funneled into the brain, it then needs to enter a short-term, kind of like a storage bucket, which we refer to as encoding into working memory. This allows us to keep information handy while we're in the middle of activities. For example, holding a phone number in our head while dialing the phone. Problems with attention, concentration, and working memory can disrupt performance with more difficult tasks. For example, upon testing, I realized that Stella's attention and concentration were really quite good, average to high average as compared to her peers, but that her working memory, or the ability to hold the bits and pieces of information as she was doing things, fell in the borderline to low average range. This could help to explain why she starts telling a story with great enthusiasm. I can't wait to tell you about that spring barbecue where I was handing somebody some coffee and nearly fell in my neighbor's lap. But when her friend asks her a question about the venue, she loses focus on what she was holding in her mind, and she doesn't tell the story about the fall. It wasn't that she actually forgot the story, but that it slipped off of her radar when she focused on something else. Our second area of cognition focuses on another foundational aspect of brain functioning: visuomotor processing speed. The speed with which information is sensed, perceived, understood, and responded to is quite important, as it determines whether or not we keep up with the rest of the world when it's on normal speed. With advancing age, processing speed is known to slow, and this can impact performance on memory and other higher level cognitive functions. While some testing sessions reveal significantly slowed processing speed, Stella's results were within normal limits in this domain. The next category we'll examine is memory. There are many different ways to describe and define the process of remembering things, but one basic structure includes aspects of that basic attention and concentration, so sensing and funneling information in, encoding, so putting it into that working memory storage bucket, consolidation, transferring information from working memory into a long-term storage place, storage, maintaining information over time, and retrieval, pulling the information out when we want it. Deficits in any one of those domains can result in problems with memory functions. What was interesting about Stella's performance on tests of memory was that when the information was organized for her, she did great, high average to superior range. When information wasn't organized for her, she tended to rely on much less efficient ways of learning and processing the information. This often results in a strategy of rote memorization, which tells me that the patient is trying hard. I will remember this data. But they're not really giving their brain any favor or any break, because it's much harder for most people to learn information in that manner without giving it some organization or structure to hang on to. Once she did learn the information, she actually kept it really quite well. This pattern tells me that perhaps this person isn't suffering from a memory problem, but instead from some kind of an organizational issue that's impacting her ability to learn and remember things. More about that in a bit. The next category that we'll discuss is language. Communication involves both an input mechanism, understanding and comprehending spoken or written language, and an output mechanism, expressing our wants, needs, and ideas through both verbal and nonverbal means. Stella's performance on these types of tests suggested that she was really doing quite well, with the exception of a mildly lowered performance on one type of language processing that relies more on the front part of your brain. The next category of functioning is visual spatial skills. The ability to identify visual and spatial relationships in our environment allows us to do a lot of things that we do in our daily lives, like dressing, assembling furniture, navigating the world. So when I'm walking across uneven ground, I don't trip on the rock that's there. Or if I'm reaching for that cup of coffee, I don't knock it over. And it also includes the ability to drive safely, which is important for a lot of people over time. From Stella's testing and her self-report, this was never an area of personal strength for her, but she scored within normal limits in this domain. Another very important area of brain functioning is this idea of frontal lobe or executive functions. Well, when you think about who is the executive or the boss, we picture people who are doing more complex life tasks, such as planning, organizing, and problem solving. Although the parts of the frontal lobe work together, we can identify 3 patterns or syndromes of different types of problems based on where the frontal lobe isn't working especially well. Problems with the dorsolateral prefrontal region often result in these classic executive-based problems, such as difficulty holding things in working memory, using good judgment, or problem solving. Problems with the orbital frontal region often result in behavioral changes, such as disinhibition and impulsiveness. These are issues that you often see where behavior is kind of less controlled and out of character for a person, such as a pretty constrained person who starts swearing regularly or engages in types of risky sexual behavior or illegal acts. Problems in the medial frontal region often result in mood-related symptoms, such as apathy, not having motivation to do things, and also a variety of motor or movement problems. Stella's primary challenge throughout testing was seen in this frontal lobe or executive functioning, likely focused in that dorsolateral prefrontal region. If you recall the problems that she mentioned, we can now understand why she would be having problems like that. For example, forgetting why she went into a room. Partially, this could be due to a working memory problem within the context of a theory called the doorway effect, where the brain hits refresh when it goes to a new environment, the other room, and makes it harder to access what you were thinking of in the first room. You can see why she would get sidetracked while telling stories or forget the point of what she was saying, because again, she has to hold those bits of information in working memory and multitask. I'm maintaining the point of what I want to say while I'm telling the details of the story. This can be difficult with frontal lobe problems. Well, when she said that she couldn't recall details of a lively conversation with several friends and she was blaming this on her memory, I would characterize this as problems more with divided attention and multitasking, where all these people are talking at once, the information is likely quite disorganized, and her brain is having problems keeping track of what's being said, providing an organizational structure, and allowing her to take it in efficiently. Now that we can better characterize Stella's problem as one that centers around frontal lobe or executive weakness, we have a much better chance of understanding what is causing her problem and what she can do about it. Did I have to tell her that she was likely suffering from Alzheimer's disease? No. While frontal lobe deficits can be a part of the pattern of Alzheimer's disease, her results did not include hallmark signs of the disorder, such as a storage-type memory problem and difficulties with more semantic aspects of expressive language. I'm hoping that this journey of understanding Stella's brain functioning and ruling out Alzheimer's disease as a cause for her problem was useful to you. If this information was helpful and you'd like to learn more, you might consider watching my next video on how to differentiate between normal aging, mild cognitive disorders, and major cognitive disorders. Or you could just skip ahead to some of the videos where I talk about ways that we can promote our own healthy brain functioning.